Have you ever found yourself carrying around baggage from past relationships, whether it's from a romantic partner, a close friendship, or even family, and it starts showing up in your present relationships? Maybe someone says something innocently, but you feel your guard go up. Or maybe you find yourself holding back from opening up, afraid that the same hurt might happen again. It's like these past experiences are still shaping how you interact with people in your life today, and it can feel exhausting, right? I get it. I've been there too. And if you've ever wondered how to let go of those old wounds so you can truly show up and connect in the present, then you're in the right place. Today, we're going to talk about how to stop letting past hurts affect your current relationships using Stoic healing. Now, I know that sounds kind of heavy, but don't worry. We're not going to dive into anything too complicated. What I want to share with you are some powerful and simple Stoic tools to help you release the hold that past hurts have on you. It's all about healing, not just from what happened, but how you think about it, and how you can create space for healthier, more fulfilling connections today. So, if you're ready to let go of some of that emotional weight, grab a cup of tea, get cozy, and let's dive in. Okay, so first, I want to ask you something. Have you ever thought about how much your past influences the way you see the world today? Maybe you're carrying around the weight of a broken heart, an unresolved conflict, or maybe a betrayal that just never quite healed. And I want you to think about how this baggage affects the relationships you're in now. Do you catch yourself being extra cautious, maybe even a little closed off? Or perhaps you find yourself overthinking everything the other person does because you're afraid of being hurt again. It's natural, right? When we've been hurt, we build up walls, thinking that they'll protect us from feeling the same pain again. But here's the thing. Sometimes those walls do more harm than good. They keep us isolated, and they make it harder to experience genuine connection. And that's where Stoicism comes in. Stoicism isn't just about being calm and collected all the time. It's about accepting what's outside of your control and focusing on how you can control your responses to those situations. Think about it like this. You can't change what happened in the past. You can't change that betrayal, that heartbreak, or that friendship that ended too soon. But what you can change is how you react to those old hurts in your present life. You have the power to heal, now, not when the past is fixed. I know that's easier said than done, but stick with me. We're going to dive into some Stoic practices that'll help you take those old hurts and turn them into something that doesn't control you anymore. So, let's get into it. The Stoic wisdom of letting go. One of the most empowering things I've learned from Stoic philosophy is the idea of the dichotomy of control. It's this idea that there are things we can control, and then there are things we can't. And here's the key. The past, no matter how painful it was, is something we can't control. We can't change what happened, no matter how much we wish we could. And that's where the healing begins. The Stoics, particularly Marcus Aurelius, emphasized that the only thing we truly have control over is our own thoughts, perceptions, and reactions. So when you find yourself ruminating on the past or replaying old hurts in your mind, ask yourself, is this helping me move forward? The more you dwell on what's outside your control, the more you're letting it take up space in your present life. Space that could be filled with peace, clarity, and connection. I want to share a story with you. A while back, I had this moment where I realized I was letting a past betrayal influence how I interacted with people in my life. It wasn't even a relationship anymore, but every time I started to get close to someone, my mind would flash back to that hurt. I didn't realize how much it was affecting me until one day I caught myself pulling away from a friend, someone who had nothing to do with that past pain, just because I was afraid of being let down again. I took a step back and remembered that Stoic principle. Control what you can, let go of what you can't. I realized that I was letting something that wasn't even in my present life still dictate my behavior. And in that moment, I made a decision to focus on the present relationship I had, without dragging the weight of the past along with me. It wasn't easy at first, but once I started practicing this, I could feel the healing starting. I was no longer trying to protect myself from something that was long gone. I was living in the moment, fully present with the people who mattered now. And that's the power of letting go. Okay, now that we've touched on letting go of the things we can't control, I want to dive into another powerful Stoic concept that helped me heal: reframing. One of the things that often keeps us stuck in the past is the story we tell ourselves about it. We look at what happened and we think, this was awful, and it's the reason I can't trust anyone now. Or we might say, that person hurt me, and it's made me scared to get close to anyone else. Sound familiar? But here's where Stoicism really shines. The Stoics teach us that our perception of events shapes how we feel about them. So, if we change the way we view the past, we change the way it affects us. The events themselves don't change, but our relationship to them does. Let me give you an example. Say you had a friend who betrayed you, and that friendship ended badly. When you think about it, maybe you're tempted to label it as a failure or a hurtful experience, and sure, it probably was painful, but what if you shifted the narrative a little bit? What if you reframed that experience as a lesson? Maybe it taught you what to look for in a real friendship, or maybe it helped you understand the value of boundaries. By changing your perspective, you can find meaning in that experience, instead of just pain. This idea of reframing isn't about pretending that things didn't hurt or weren't unfair. It's not about ignoring your feelings. It's about taking that situation and asking, what can I learn from this? What can I take from this experience that helps me show up better in my current relationships? One of the most profound things I learned from Stoicism is that suffering isn't something we just endure. It's something we can learn from if we choose to. And trust me, you don't have to have all the answers right away. It's about allowing yourself the space to reflect and then deciding how you want that experience to shape who you are today. Forgiveness, the Stoic way. Now, I know what you might be thinking, but how do I forgive someone who hurt me so deeply? And that's a great question, because forgiveness can be one of the hardest parts of healing, especially when the pain feels so personal and raw. But the Stoics have a way of approaching forgiveness that's so powerful. Seneca, one of the most famous Stoic philosophers, said something that really stuck with me. It is not the hurt that harms you, but the way you respond to it. What he's saying here is that it's not the person who hurt you that causes you to suffer. It's your reaction to that hurt. And forgiveness, in the Stoic sense, isn't about excusing the behavior. It's about freeing yourself from the power that person's actions have over you. So let's say you've been hurt by someone in your past. Forgiving them doesn't mean you're saying what you did was okay. It's about choosing to let go of the anger, resentment, or grudges you're holding on to so that they don't continue to affect you. And that freedom, it's priceless. When I started applying this to my own life, I realized that forgiveness wasn't for the other person, it was for me. It was me choosing peace instead of staying stuck in the past, and it made all the difference. Now, let's talk about something that I think is really important: forgiving yourself. I know we've been focusing a lot on forgiving others, and that's a huge part of healing. But what about the times when we're the ones who need to do the forgiving? Because sometimes the hardest person to forgive is ourselves. Maybe we stayed too long in a toxic relationship, or we didn't stand up for ourselves when we should have. Maybe we feel like we failed in some way, and now every time we try to move forward, those past mistakes come rushing back. Here's where Stoic wisdom can really shift your perspective. Marcus Aurelius, one of the most famous Stoics, talks about the idea of self-compassion in his meditations. He reminds us that just like we would forgive someone else for making a mistake, we need to forgive ourselves too. It's all part of being human. We're all going to mess up at some point, and that doesn't mean we're failures or unworthy of love and connection. It just means we're doing our best, and sometimes our best isn't perfect, and that's okay. I remember a time when I was really hard on myself after a failed friendship. I felt like I should have known better. Like if I had been more aware, maybe I could have avoided the pain and disappointment. But what I learned through Stoic reflection was that I couldn't change what happened. All I could do was learn from it. I had to forgive myself for not being perfect and allow myself the grace to move on. And here's the thing. Once you start forgiving yourself, you're opening the door to healthier, more authentic relationships because you're not carrying around that guilt or shame anymore. You're free to be the person you want to be right now without being weighed down by your past mistakes. It's such a liberating feeling, and it makes it so much easier to show up fully in your present relationships without constantly looking over your shoulder or holding on to regret. One thing I've found incredibly helpful in the healing process is practicing gratitude. I know it might sound a little counterintuitive at first. How can you be grateful when you've been hurt? But hear me out. The Stoics weren't about ignoring pain or pretending like everything is fine when it's not. What they were really focused on was finding meaning and growth even in the most challenging moments. And that's where gratitude comes in. By shifting your focus from what you've lost or what's been taken from you to what you have right now, what you've gained through your experiences, you start to see the bigger picture. I'm not saying you should be grateful for the hurt, but rather that you can be grateful for what it's taught you, how it's made you stronger, or how it's guided you to make different choices moving forward. I'll give you an example. After a tough breakup, I was crushed. I couldn't see beyond the pain. But one day, when I was reflecting, I realized something important. That relationship, as painful as it was, taught me so much about what I want in a partner, about my own worth, and about setting boundaries. In a weird way, I started to appreciate that experience because it helped me understand myself better. I could look back and say, I'm not the same person I was before that happened, and I'm stronger now because of it. That shift in perspective from why did this happen to me to what can I learn from this can completely transform how you approach your relationships moving forward. Instead of being a victim of your past, you start seeing yourself as a person who has grown from those experiences and is now capable of making better choices. Let's talk a little more about presence, being present in your current relationships. I think this is something we often overlook, especially when we're holding on to old wounds. When we're still emotionally entangled with our past, it's easy to show up in our current relationships with a bit of emotional baggage. Maybe you've been hurt before, so you're a little more guarded, or you start questioning whether someone really cares because you've been let down in the past. You might even avoid getting close to someone because you're afraid of being hurt again. But here's where the magic happens. When you're able to really focus on the present moment without dragging that past baggage into it, you give yourself the chance to fully experience the relationship in front of you. You stop projecting past pain onto the person in front of you, and instead, you let them show up as who they are right now, without judgment. I had a friend once who was always afraid of being abandoned in relationships because of some painful experiences in their past. They would constantly analyze every little thing their partner did, looking for signs that they might get hurt again. It wasn't until they started applying Stoic practices, like focusing on what they could control, being aware of their own fears, and practicing gratitude, that they could let go of that old narrative. When they started being more present, they were able to enjoy the relationship they were in without constantly worrying about the past repeating itself. Now, I know it's not always easy. Old habits die hard, and sometimes our minds just want to default back to old fears and insecurities. But the more you practice being present, the more natural it becomes. And with time, you'll find that you're not constantly rehashing old wounds in your head, but instead really engaging with the person right in front of you, building a relationship based on trust rather than fear. Okay, I've saved one of the most powerful Stoic principles for last. It's the idea of acceptance. And I know this might sound a bit counterintuitive, especially when we're talking about past hurts. But stick with me here. The Stoics teach us that we don't have to like everything that happens to us, but we can accept it. Acceptance isn't about resigning ourselves to a bad situation. It's about acknowledging reality for what it is, without fighting against it. Think about it. If you're still fighting against the past, if you're still holding on to resentment or anger, you're giving that past hurt so much power over your present. But when you accept what happened, when you can say, yes, that hurt and it wasn't fair, but it's over now, you take away its ability to control you. You free yourself from the emotional grip it has on your life. I know it's hard to just accept the pain, but the first step is just acknowledging that it is a part of your story. Once you do that, it doesn't have to define you or determine how you show up in your relationships today. You become more at peace with the fact that life doesn't always go the way we want it to, but you can control how you react, how you move forward, and how you let go. So, as we wrap up today's conversation, I want to leave you with this. You have the power to stop letting past hurts control your present relationships. By practicing Stoic principles, by accepting what's outside your control, forgiving yourself and others, reframing your perspective, and staying present, you can create space for healing and connection in your life right now. You deserve to have relationships where you feel safe, loved, and valued, not because of what's happened in the past, but because of who you are right now. And with a little Stoic wisdom, you can break free from the chains of old wounds and start building healthier, more fulfilling connections. If this video spoke to you, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe for more tips on how to live a life of greater peace and purpose. And hey, drop a comment below and share your own healing journey. I'd love to hear how you're applying these Stoic principles to your relationships. Thanks so much for watching, and remember, you're always capable of healing, growing, and moving forward. Take care, and I'll see you in the next video.